As the title of this video suggests, an interesting comparison is between Donald Trump and Pat Buchanan. Pat was a senior advisor for Richard Nixon and for Ronald Reagan, and further ran for the Republican primaries in the 1990s and won New Hampshire in 1996, and in 2000 he ran for the Reform Party. Both Donald Trump and Pat have similar positions on three key issues: a strong and controversial stance on immigration, an American non-interventionist foreign policy, and further they propose policies that counter free trade agreements such as NAFTA, CAFTA, and recently the TPP. So beginning with immigration, Donald Trump has since his announcement on the 16th of June been strict on immigration and dealing with undocumented immigrants, and has further revolved his campaign around building a wall on the southern border and making Mexico pay for it. Here's a clip of that.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
In a similar way, Pat Buchanan has been calling for a wall since the 1990s, saying, "Does this first world nation wish to become a third world country? Because that is our destiny if we do not build a seawall against the waves of immigration rolling over our shores." Also, here's a clip.
Let me tell you, if you get amnesty and a path to citizenship, what the Mexican president wants, that will lead to the erasure of the southern border of the United States, because the Hispanic population in all those border states is going to be decisive in elections, and they will begin to demand that people shut up about immigration and let it come forward. Yeah. And when that happens, you're going to have an entirely different USA.
Regarding foreign policy, both are non-interventionists. Pat Buchanan was opposed to expelling Iraq from Kuwait in the 1990s and has opposed a war against Iran, shown here with Hannity.
Sponsor of terror, that they stop saying that it's non-negotiable, Israel's destruction, and that they stop saying death to America before we even sit down at the table with them?
No, Sean. Look, in 1956, Khrushchev says, "We will bury you Americans," and 3 years later, he was in the White House with Dwight Eisenhower. You got to talk to your enemies. Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran, came out and said, "We're going to wipe Israel off the map." It was beer talk.
They've said it doesn't. Pat, that's not beer talk. He was in office 8 years, Sean, and he's back teaching in college. You don't believe them? Wasn't that a mistake we made in World War II?
Similarly, Donald Trump has repeatedly said that Iraq and Iran should fight each other and that the US should stay out of the war in the Middle East. And further, he has opposed the war in Iraq since 2004. Here's a short clip showing that.
Intervened in Syria, you would have removed Assad as the president of that country?
Well, you know, Obama said he was going to do that, and the problem you have is that Russia is on his side, Iran is on his side, and lots of other things can happen.
But what would you have done? Would you have
been very strong
after the gas? After the gas.
The amazing thing, after the gas, something should have happened, because when they
what
used
would you
gas,
have done? What in hindsight?
Well, probably in retrospect, they should have gone in and they should have done something with Assad. But, you know, Assad is not our biggest problem, because Assad and ISIS are actually fighting.
Yes.
So now what we're doing is we're fighting ISIS, and ISIS wants to fight Assad. And some people could say, why don't you just let them fight out and you take off the remnants?
Regarding free trade, Donald Trump has repeatedly said that the US has a $50 billion trade deficit with China and an $80 billion trade deficit with Japan, and has mentioned that Japan exports millions of cars to the US. In a similar way, Pat Buchanan, who was originally a free trader in the 1960s and 1970s, has reversed his stance towards free trade in the 1990s, saying that it has destroyed millions of jobs in the US and that Americans cannot compete with foreign low-skill and low-wage jobs.
I've come to believe that free trade is basically a betrayal of the country as it was structured by Washington and Hamilton and Madison and the other great Americans through Lincoln and the Republicans up into the Great Depression. They had put together an economic nationalist system, a free market inside the United States, protected by tariffs, because of their tremendous reaction to what the British had done to them with the blockades, with not allowing the colonies to manufacture, with basically cheating the colonies of the value of their products, their tobacco, and whatever. And they devised this system, Hamilton in particular, to make America economically independent forever of all nations. And that economic nationalism enabled this country from the Civil War to World War I to become the economic marvel of the world, where we produce more than all the other countries in the world combined.